Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming on Power Talk, please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our app to your smartphone. Stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And before he hits the links this afternoon, I was able to corral my guest for set 2 of our interview, a guy who is, spinning with a huge amount of work in the studio. He's got cats like Richard T. Bear. He's cutting albums for them. He's putting together his own stuff. He's probably still trying to figure out how to finish that book. Most importantly, he's still spreading the love and still giving of himself, which is the most important thing in this time that we are living in. Tony Braunagal, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. It's good to be back.
And
a good Sunday morning to everybody out there. All over the place.
A good Sunday morning to everybody out there. And
we have a lot to be thankful for. I mean, you look at my friends in Northern California, the people in Puerto Rico, people down in Texas and Louisiana and all the Florida, all the hardship all around everywhere, and just in our own country. And, I got up this morning in the sunshine, and it's beautiful, and I go for a bicycle ride. I come back, and I get to talk on the phone to you for a while.
How did you learn, what was the turning point in your, if there was a demarcation point when you became humbled by the simplest things? I just know when I talk to Bear, and he takes a lot of pride in it, but he started these picnics, these sober picnics for cats in the early '80s. And it was meant to say, hey, we can live without the drugs and the booze but that doesn't necessarily have to do with anything else. You're talking about the simplest things, just being thankful that you have a roof over your head, that you're healthy enough to ride a bike, that you actually have the money to go and play 18 holes today. Was there a turning point in your life that you can talk about where you became humble to the life force that you bring and how important it is to stay humble?
I think I got to give my upbringing, my parents, a little bit of credit because it was a good household. It was a religious household, but and I was Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I didn't continue with the Catholic faith, and I don't go to any church now. And I think over the years of all the craziness that I went through, because I did do all those things that you're talking about that people stopped doing later on in life, and it was a lot of fun. I don't regret that, but I don't think I lost ground anywhere because I'm of an age now where most cats are kind of letting it go, and I'm just steaming ahead, with everything I'm doing. And I don't know exactly if there was one single epiphany or whatever, one single thing. I think it was a lot of different things. I saw people coming away from that. We all got swept off in this direction of we got to get high to do this, when it was our blessing that for the whole of being able to play music, for the whole reason that we were together in the first place, playing music, and we kind of over-regaled. I think that's what happens is you get so high doing it that you just want to stay higher, and then you go to things like drugs and alcohol. And that's what happened to so many people, and they got wrapped up in it. And then the climate around me kind of changed. And I always had kind of this safety valve that allowed me to say, okay, that's enough. I'm going to bed, or I'll see y'all later, or hang with a different crew,
right,
or whatever,
Right.
And then this climate of everybody looking for their higher power started to creep into the culture here of where I am living and the music and everything, and I saw it start to happen all over the world. And I just, it dawned on me that was important to me as well. And I started doing yoga maybe, 25 years ago or more, something like that, yeah. And I'm not a full-on yoga practicer all the time, but it's something that allows me to settle down and get to that place where I can feel kind of peaceful within myself and turn off all the voices.
Could you?
And
I mean, I just couldn't think about asking a better person because we're all spirit. I mean, you use this term. Actually, I don't want to jump around too much because I need to ask you about that later. But what are the still the voice? What are your mom and dad's voices? What are the little things that you still hear them saying in your head as it relates to your upbringing? I mean, I get that you know maybe the rigidity of the church or for whatever reason you don't worship in that organized way, but you have your own ways of doing it. And
Correct.
but the anchor, what are those little things that you hear them saying in your head?
Jake, it's the things that every single religion teaches, right? You know, those basic things.
Right.
Like
Thou shalt not steal. Yeah, right.
do unto others as you would do to yourself, blah, blah, blah. You see someone in need, help them out, show a little mercy. You know, when you're angry, look for a way to find your way out of it without reacting and doing something and acting on your anger or whatever. I saw that from my mom and my dad, you know, and I mean, they weren't perfect, they weren't saints, but at the same time, I think they were great examples of just how to be a good human being, because everybody loved them. When both of them died, when they died separately, you know, 8 years apart or 9 years apart, everyone was in love with my mother and my father when they died. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. Now, that's pretty successful thing. You can go through your life and have that many people still really like you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I saw losing them both is really, really hard, and it is for anybody. And I guess I was lucky to have them as long as I did. My father was 82, and my father's 84, my mother's 82, I think. So that's a long time to have your parents with all the disease and sickness going around. But all of those years having that around and then see them go, and now I don't have them, and I reflect back on who they are, I just remember about how well they were liked, and I think that's the example that I needed to follow. And today I'm not unlike them in that way. You know, I go, okay, you know, I have a community of friends and family here in the music business in Los Angeles. We're all like family. If something happened to any one of us, the other ones are going to take care of them. You know, and it's it's been that way for a while, and it feels really good. And I think that's part of the success of living this long and doing what I do and having all these friends. To me, that's the success right there.
Talking to Tony Braunagal here on the Jake Feinberg Show. You obviously I've talked to Dr. Feinfield about it. I just wasn't sure how aware or not aware or how engaged you are with the fact that so many musicians actually don't have their own health care out there. I mean, is that something that how are you dealing with some of the like the brotherhood that maybe you're not like calling on the phone or always in touch with, but yet you knew them in the past and they don't even have enough, and they don't even have the ability to live a healthy life.
You know, I was fortunate in that I was always able to pay for insurance, and I always kept a high level of insurance, health insurance. I mean, not all my life. I mean, once I became, I guess, responsible sometime in my late 30s or 40s or whatever. You know.
So you actually have to like buy more to accumulate more? Is that? I mean, I don't know how it really works. I mean, it's not like it. Like my wife is a teacher for the state of Arizona, so we have like a Cadillac insurance plan. But like for the musician, how does it? Because I know Dr. Feinfield, he's trying to raise awareness with one of his concerts later this year, possibly about lack of health insurance for the cats. And
it's funny that California or that Los Angeles, of all places, hasn't done what they've done in Austin. In Austin, they have this society that takes care, that they have benefits for, and everybody contributes to, and everybody helps keep alive and keep active. And it's health insurance for all the musicians in Austin, Texas. And this city could really use it. It has to be monitored properly or else it's abused, but I really think that it would really help that especially any large city, Nashville, New York, Los Angeles, even Chicago, having, some type of society that helps everybody get health insurance, because it's hell when a guy gets of an age that things start happening and you got to go to the doctor a lot more than you did when you were in your 20s and 30s and 40s. And there's there's diseases out there that seem to be kind of creeping up on us, whether they're viral or whatever. or they're cancerous or whatever, that you have to like try to stay healthy. To me, one of the things is eat well and stay healthy and get plenty of exercise, but not everybody gets a chance to do that. I think Dr. Feinfeld, in fact, I should probably talk to him about this a little bit more and see if we can, one, raise awareness and maybe get some people behind it too.
Well, I know when I interviewed him, I know, and you've been at those gigs. I mean, I think that Gradney told me you and Keltner play double drums there once in a while, or JJ Cale, and it's like, I know in December, that's what I think I would, and I'm going to come out for it and document it on Facebook Live, and I want to raise a lot of awareness for it because, I mean, to me, this is like, I don't know if you ever knew, I mean, you've known so many cats, but there was this piano player who played with Hugh Masekela and Blood, Sweat, and Tears called Larry Willis, and he's a monster. And I did an interview with him like 3 years ago, and this is what he said in our interview. This is like 3 years ago. He said, and you can just riff on this any way you want. He said that our culture in the United States, and you talked about this last time with the Ghanaians, like I said, where do you go find that music now? And you said it's been pushed off the streets. It's harder to find. He said, and this is a cat who grew up in Harlem. He said, our culture is continually being stifled. Now, I just want to be clear. This happened in 2014 when Obama was still in office, but it's kind of eerie when he riffs on this. He goes, culture is the underpinning and backbone of any society. When you see programs that are being pushed forward to nullify education, to take away someone's health care or their ability to eat and clothe and house themselves, when there's a push to deny the right to be healthy, I am becoming more and more fearful of the move in that direction. Hopefully I can count on the intelligence and sensitivity of American society. It's here, and we're going to have to deal with this somehow or another, or we will endure negative consequences beyond belief. And this is the most important part. He said, culture and music stimulate the human spirit and the human intellect. If these attitudes are allowed to move forward and persist, they're going to deny and destroy that energy that society must have coming from its culture. And, I want you to talk about, I got to be honest, after I see all the technology and all the willingness to engage the technology and to buy the latest thing and to everything's solvable. And yet I said to myself, okay, I'm just going to go and talk to peeps like Braunagal and Bear and Finnegan and Taj because I want to stay connected spiritually because I feel more enlightened. I feel sharper now than I ever have in my life. And I haven't made any kind of real money off this stuff. And so I say to myself, do you feel that as well? Do you feel that energy that you need to have? It's not like having a Greek day, a Greek festival or, a Latin salsa, but it's like actual culture, the real culture. And he was talking about in Harlem, the stuff was it was out in the street. The jazz was there. And then the jazz moved downtown New York. And a lot of the cats couldn't necessarily afford to move down there. And so, do you, not that you stay up at night, you're a busy cat in your studio, but what are your thoughts on what he said as far as it relates to where we are now, currently, and how much of it has to do with the fact that our culture is being stifled?
Our culture is being stifled. Every time that a certain style of government starts to become more prominent, and it starts to move in that direction more. You see the cutbacks in areas of education and arts and stuff like that. And Larry was very correct. President Obama was very correct about the fact that without all the stimulation of the culture of music and art, that part of our consciousness, that wonderment, that part of the ether that we get to plug into, that we're blessed with all these wonderful things, sunshine, just seeing, good things happen, a lot of people getting together, and then all of a sudden music happens and art happens, and all these things are part of who we are and our blessing that's as human beings. I feel it's part of the balance of good and bad in our lives. You wake up one day, you don't feel so good.
Right.
You're not in a good mood.
Right.
What am I going to do to come out of this? I'll go for a walk. I don't know. For me, I go ride my bike or hike or do some yoga or something. And then I come out of it, and I have a little something to eat, and I go to the studio. And then some days I wake up in the morning, I'm just wham right away. Everything is wonderful.
Right,
you know?
right.
You have those days. So you got to try to remember that there are the good and the bad days. The balance is going to be there. Not everything can be perfect all the time. But what we have to do constantly is keep a vigil on the creative spirit, because the creative spirit is exactly what he was talking about. When you plug into the creative spirit, that's the part of your brain that not only makes things up and does things and comes up with ideas and solves problems, but it's the part of you that you get all your pleasure from as well. You know, that's the part of your brain that lets you enjoy and recognize things that are good. You know, the other part of your brain organizes and puts things together, blah blah blah, and it's a lot stiffer, you know. But you have to let that part of your brain become of who you are, and the consciousness, a constant consciousness of an artist is that openness about all the things that we're talking about here. You know, music being the language of the gods.
That's what you said last time. That's what you said
last
time, man. So, I mean, I want you to go deeper on that, because that has folkloric and metaphoric stuff. But go do a dive on that, because this is where the rubber.
If the aliens are in control, then they're throwing this stuff at us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
To make a really crazy point from this.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in control, they're watching us, and they're throwing this music at us. They're going, I wonder if they're going to take this. I wonder if they're going to use this. Here's the tool we give them to get through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
These are the wonderful tools that they can have to get through life. It will help them put up with all the things that they have to do that are not pleasant, that are hard to do every single day. It helps them put up with their strife and their suffering and their frustration and their anger and their fear mostly. So you create this element of love and everything. So whether it's the aliens or whether it's God or whatever you believe in, whatever you think, it's there. And that goes back to what I said about my mother and my father. It's that they showed me that good things can happen when you're good to other people and when you try to do good things to yourself as well, you know, that it just kind of starts to show and it glows. And if everybody glows with that thing called LOVE, then we all make a better world of it. And when you see the arts being trampled on and pulled back from and money pulled away and people making fun of artists for, you know, sometimes artists stick their necks out too much and get too cocky and say too many things without mentioning names. I'm sure we could come up with a few right now that are unpopular, whether they're actors or musicians or whatever, you know, and or just artists or whatever that stick their necks out a little too far. They do that because that if you don't push that to an extreme, then you get to look at everything else, all the boring stuff, and you can't put it in perspective.
Absolutely.
I hope I'm making
Absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely.
You know, you put all that stuff. All of this allows us to put things into perspective of the good and the bad in our lives. You know, you look at a comedian, you go, boy, those comedians are rough. They're tough people. If you hang around a bunch of comedians, you're going to get nailed, you know. And it's okay, because I hang out with a bunch of guys like that are that funny, and they all nail each other all the time. And people think, why are those comedians so cruel? It's because they're always pushing. They're always pushing for that thing that's kind of painful that they can come back and make you laugh about. You know, and to me, that's an art in itself, right there. You know, you sit there and you laugh at something, and you think about what you're laughing at. It really is kind of it's unfortunate in some ways for some people that what you're laughing at, but it allows you to be objective about who you are in this life, and what you're all about, and what your aims and goals are, and how you treat everybody else. It's very important, and to always try to push aside that voice in your head that brings you closer to fear and further away from love.
God, you're waxing poet. I mean, we're talking to a poet right now. Most people wouldn't even know he's a drummer. I mean, this is unbelievable. Braunagal, language of the gods. Okay, this Bloons and Rabbit and the Ghanaians, and I mean, you go back to a time when it was less sophistication on the technology side, and not so much with Bear or with Gradney, or if it's a Braunagal, your own session. But when you have younger cats in the studio, how do you get them to get away from getting everything down to the 0.0001 to the perfect, like getting away from the technology and more towards the language of the gods? How do you is that something that, because it's not a tangible thing, and I wonder how you get cats to engage in that kind of, get them out of that mindset of having everything to be technically perfect. The sound has to be perfect, and it has to be more about the feel. And, like David Lindley told me yesterday, I forget who he was talking to. Someone would say to him, like Ry Cooter would say, it's got that smell. It smells good. It smells good.
Yeah.
It's like the smell, the sound, the feel. And that's the language of the gods. And
That's the language of the
talking
gods.
to the peeps, how would you just talk about how you get younger peeps, or just in general, what your advice is for people that are oftentimes coming into the studio now, spending 45 minutes to make sure that the drum sound is absolutely perfect?
It's funny you said, Ry Cooter said smell. A lot of musicians see colors when they hear music,
right,
and make music. Actually see them, see colors. And I can't say that I am blessed that I kind of see colors. I guess I get an aura and a certain feeling when it's right, and I feel it all over my body, and I feel it grab my emotions often, and I get caught up in them. I was working on a song a couple of days ago, and it wouldn't come out of my head, and it's a beautiful, very sad ballad, very sad. And I woke up yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, and I woke up yesterday, and I almost, without having any reason to cry, my body and my soul and my heart wanted to cry. It made me that sad, because I'm so sensitive to all these emotions that we have in making this music all the time. For a minute I thought, well, what's wrong with me? Am I going crazy, or what do I need? And then I thought, it's okay, just let it process, let it go through you, and feel and experience it and understand it, as opposed to fighting it and just try to put your hand up and shove it aside. So I kind of let it overcome me yesterday, and that's how it gets me. I don't really see colors. I can't say I smell things, although when something is really, really funky, we all try to go and open the window. So somebody open that door, please. It's getting real funky in here. But
yeah, by the way,
amazing,
the technical term for what Braunagal's talking about is synesthesia. It's
synesthesia.
Yeah, right.
That's a good one. That's good.
Well, no, good. I mean it literally it is. I mean, it's a perceptual phenomenon which stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to automatic involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. And this is very
beautiful.
These were I know some of I didn't know them personally, but this is incredible stuff. This is about shape formation, colors, and so you probably do have some of that. But how take that into the studio with Gen Xers and younger cats? I mean, how do you make it relevant and so that they can burn?
Well, okay, good point. And I know that was your original point, and I was going to get to it here. I'd have to use my basic things that I stand by and stick by, that I know work for me, that I know that if I don't do, I'm doing it wrong. I have to use these things because they're tried and true, and they're universal. They're basically, if there was a textbook, they are textbook. There is no textbook on it, but those that know, and the guys that are experienced enough to have been around and done it and have touched it and felt it touch them, it's just something you just naturally do, and that is that I ask them to always, make sure you know the song, listen to the song, listen to the words, get the feel of this whole thing, and then look around you and feel what's happening from everybody. From what's that guitar player doing, how is he reacting to it, how's the bass player bumping this thing, and where is he putting that beat, and where are you putting that beat to make him sound better? blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately, when there's someone up there singing, how do you make that person sound good? What are you going to do to make them sound good? It's your responsibility when you're playing to get into that zone, to make them sound it. It's not your right to play just anything you want to play. It is not your right to ramble around. It is not your right to try to impress other people with what you play. Not when you're playing songs in the studio. And that's what I always have to tell anybody, whether they're young, Gen Xers, hipsters, or even old cats.
Wow, really? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody.
Sorry,
right now,
wow.
It's not about you.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's about what's going on in this room right now. And that's why I still really, really love and I stick by recording things live with everybody in the studio, a bunch of musicians at the same time. I try to get as many things, not piling up the tracks, but I try to get as many elements that are necessary for the song to have the shape that it's supposed to have and the basic colors and foundation and framework for the melody to work and the drama that you need and the dynamics with all at one time with everybody. So we get a lot of great live performances at the studio.
It's incredible. I would love to get out because I was interviewing Dave Bargeron, who was the bone player for Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and he said that with Columbia they would never let them all hit at the same time. You'd have to have the horns in isolation and the vocals in the rhythm section. And so it drove them crazy because they wanted to play, and a lot of the tracks sound, this is after David Clayton Thomas. This is more when they were just a jazz soul group. But what he said was that they would jam up the tunes in advance, like maybe they'd do it a couple times, like so they'd have it show ready. Okay, and then they'd get in and they do these sort of multiple recording times with the horns and whatnot, so it would be as hot as possible. But you're saying you're saying did you have that experience? And you said going back to your days in the studio, not necessarily with Island, but maybe more like with Columbia or these perfectionist places where you're like, if I ever have my own studio, I just want to do it all live.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing. I come from that, Jake. Growing up, working in the studio, it's always been where everybody got in the studio and played at the same time. This thing about let's put the drums down,
right,
and then let's get the bass player to play our bass line over that, and then we're going to throw the keyboard boards on this, and doing everything from like a scratch demo of machines and sequencers and keyboard noises. You know what I mean? That's what you use that's what you're playing to. And you throw down parts and you customize these parts, and a lot of records are made that way. I don't make my records that way. Bass player, drummer, keyboard player, guitarist, at least, are all playing at the same time. I count it off. We have a click track. I get a click track because we want to be able to, if we want to edit, with the new technology we're talking about, here's the way I use it in an organic fashion. I get a great live track, and then if we want to move some things around, we can edit in Pro Tools. Steve Cropper told me that when they used to cut at Stax Records, that they would use a verse from one song, a chorus from another, a bridge from another.
Right,
take.
This one sounds good. I dig, man. Yeah.
They would do 20 takes, and because Al Jackson Jr. had such a great time, they weren't using a click track. All of those tracks fit together. They were able to put all these. They were doing the same thing back then before Pro Tools.
Unbelievable. So it's the organic. And what are is there? How much do you get that quartet, so to speak, guitar, whatever you talk about, guitar, keyboard? Yeah. I mean, do you get them? How long does that take before you're actually hitting the record button?
Not long at all, because it's quicker than if you do one person at a time. I think some people think that I think some producers or some people think, well, if we do one at a time, it'll be quicker because we'll just hone in on that part. That's BS, man.
I did no. This is, and I want to play you this audio clip. We're putting Braunagal's producer hat on today because the guy also can swing his butt off on the drum kit. But I want you to listen to this, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Got it.
and at that time, their producer engineer, Bruce Botnick, was engineering most of the stuff that I was doing. Just, I don't know if it was coincidence or what it was, but hey, buddy, my grandson Charlie just walked in.
Hey, listen. It's time for. We're good. We have more to do later on, Jim.
Okay.
You do your thing. Good to talk to you, man.
Yeah. Oh, so we're done.
Well, I want you to, family first, man.
Oh, no, it's okay. He tiptoed in here just to say hello.
Hey, Charlie, how you doing?
Hey, Jake says hi, Charlie.
Yeah.
So it's a live radio, babe. Anyway, to finish it off real quick,
sure.
The thing is that I asked Bruce, because he was engineering the stuff that I was doing. I was doing all kind of other dates and things. So I said to Bruce one time, hey, man, why can't you get my drums to sound like John's, on those great Doors songs I'm hearing on the radio all the time. And he laughed and he said, John is always telling me, why can't you get my tom-toms to sound like Kelton? So I loved what that told me. It taught me a whole lot right then, especially about engineering, And another good thing, and I'll just say this, it's not going to be important to anybody else but drummers. There might be a few drummers listening. The thing about John Densmore's sound with the Doors back then, I can't speak for now, but the sound back then, the magic of it was that he had a really terrible drum set, apparently, and tuned really poorly as compared to the way you're supposed to tune your drums as a studio player. And so that was a great lesson for me at the time. What that meant to me was that the engineer had to have something to do. If you bring a drum set in that sounds really great already, tuned pretty and beautifully and everything, then what's he going to do? He's not going to have to work for it. So I learned a valuable lesson with that.
All right, I apologize about the grandson cutting in. That was Jim Keltner there.
No, that was Jimmy Lee.
Jimmy Lee Keltner. You were going to nail it. And he was talking about Densmore's terrible sounding drum kit. And I'm like, this is a question for Braunagal in the sense that, did you, the more and more I talk to people like Lindley or, I didn't even remember that story from Keltner. It's like, it was, can you talk about from the engineering or the production point of view? Like, has there been an episode like that where somebody doesn't have the right tuning for the studio per se,
Sure.
but you make it work as an engineer? That to me is part of the issue, is that you have dudes now, and it's just a smaller business. It's not an industry the way it was 40 years ago, but you don't have the Botnicks anymore like that to make that sound so good. But I just want you to riff on that any way you want.
Well, a great engineer is worth $1 million. Just like, the engineer captures what is in front of him. He uses the right microphones. He places it at the right place where he gets the right amount of bottom in or top in or mid-range, whatever he's looking for, which, from the nature of the instrument or whatever. And then he's using all of that spectrum that he is in his head putting together, whether he wants a real bottomy snare drum or a toppy snare drum or a mid-range ringy snare or a big fat bass drum or just something that goes boom. All the things that he's looking for, he's got that in his mind before he puts the whole spectrum of sounds together in the studio with a band. And he's going to have to hear some notes from the bass player, and he's going to have to hear a little bit about what everybody's playing. But at a certain point, he's going to be miking and EQing and compressing to make everything fit in together so that you don't have things that sound exactly the same on one side of the stereo or the other that are clashing. You try to make everything have a contrast so that there's it's like you're looking at the stage and there's a front and a back and a left and a right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this binary depth to this. You try to put everything so it's placed a certain way. That keyboard is almost completely left, but it's about 10 feet back. And that guitar on the right is kind of 2 or 3 feet from the front and right all the way out to the side. And that bass is filling up right around the middle and everything, and the kick drum's right with it, So the great engineer is going to know how to place all of these things, starting with microphones, and whether EEQ is going to the track or not, or whether he used compressions going to the track or not. Most guys don't compress very much going to the track because you can't take it away later. You get a great bunch of musicians that have a great touch. The drummer's got a great sound on his drum kit. Bass player knows how to get the right type of bottom in and how much of the low mid-range he needs and how much top end or stringy noise he needs and how low he needs to go. All these things are taken into consideration, and a great engineer just basically puts it all together and pulls it forward, and then you look at that whole picture of how it sounds. Well, when you have great players, it's a lot easier. When you have a John Densmore drum kit, you have to be creative with
Well,
it.
that's
So
what I'm
now
trying.
I
I'm like,
would play-
did Braunagal have this? Did you ever did any of your mentors, cats going back to Texas, have these? I mean, I just know Donald Duck Bailey had he was in wood shop and he had cigarette ashtrays, these metal trays attached to it. I mean, it was not perfectly tuned. Did you ever have a kit like that you used? Or, I mean, because this to me is sort of revelatory.
I've been in a couple of studios where I went in to do something fast, and someone said, "Well, we got the drums," and I go, "Well, what are they?" Now I don't let that happen to me anymore if I can help it.
But can you talk about how you adapted? I mean, it must have been hysterical.
Yeah, I've done that several times. I go into there and I try to get a distinctive noise out of each one of the drums or cymbals, and if they don't have just naturally when you hit them, they don't go boom the way you wanted them to go and have that exact tone that you're looking for. All the resonance, the sustain, the pitch in the right place, and the touch and the feel and everything. Or the cymbal is too dark, or the worst type are the cymbals when they're too bright and too heavy and too thick.
Right.
So those don't record well. So you have to figure out a way to touch them, to get a sound out of them, to find the best part of their sound. Like, okay, that cymbal here, I don't like it, but I'm going to find, it kind of sounds okay if you touch it right there. Bing, let's just hit it there.
Just put
Let's
some
not
tape
hit it
right there.
anywhere
Yeah,
else.
I dig.
You know, and that snare drum, okay, well, if I hit it a little off center over here with the butt end of the stick, cool, that it makes an impact, you know what I mean? It's those type of things that you have to do as a drummer. When I have to record somebody like that, I'm sorry, I take a break and we get rid of the drums.
Very interesting. So when you're talking about creativity, are you also engineering in your studio?
No, I'm not engineering, but I have a great engineer, Johnny Lee Schell, who owns the studio.
No, I need that.
I
I need to talk to that cat, man.
You need to talk to Johnny. I want you to talk to Johnny.
I need to talk to Johnny Lee Schell because he's part of what Gradney dubbed the Texas contingent. That was you and him and
We are indeed. It is part of that family.
So Johnny Lee Schell, I mean, he's a creative cat too, though.
Very creative. He's a brilliant guitarist, a great singer, a great songwriter. He has excellent ears. He has big, wonderful ears that hear notes go by that are wrong and not in the right chord. You know what I mean? He's got a great relative pitch to the music, and he has a real style of his own. You know, it's amazing to be around these incredible musicians that all have a style where let's get so-and-so to play bass on this, you know, because you know the bass player you want, you know. You got 5 bass players you're thinking about, 6 bass players, and you go, what about him? No, he's better at that track, you know. Or the keyboard player, no, this guy's got that gospel thing that I want this on that track, you know. Johnny Lee's got a real style that when you say, Johnny Lee, let's put him on a track, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be really good. It's going to be very tasty, and it's going to be glue. I always say Johnny brings the glue.
He brings the glue.
Yeah, when we're recording a track and we're looking for the feel and everything, Johnny will bring the glue. He'll just go and play something and it's simple, just completely simple, and then all of a sudden everything feels good, and you go, well, there you go. You know, that's the artistry of a great musician like that can hear that and knows what to play.
What is it? How do you guys were literally playing drum part? Like if you were copying drum parts as a youngster, it was Earl Palmer or it was Purdy or I don't want to do
Al Jackson Jr.
Al Jackson Jr. I mean, they were all. You could tell
Gary Chester.
Chester was huge. Yeah, I think. Wait, I mean, somebody. No, that Weinberg was talking about Gary Chester. He was off, but but the point is that everybody had this individual style, so that you could say, well, I want Finnegan for that gospel soul thing, or I want Taj or Gradney for that that bathtub funk or whatever. Whatever. I mean, everybody had their own style, and so is it. Do you mix and match a lot as a producer too? Where if you have younger cats that want to come in to do a session, what I'm getting at is that Rick Murata, I was transcribing this interview with him that I did, and he's like, literally, I'm listening to stuff and it sounds like machine drum parts, and then I think it's a machine, and I look at the stage and it's actually a real person. They've been copying computer parts, and I'm like, and I'm like. So with Braunagal, do you bring in stylists? Because my generation younger clearly have been, not everybody, but it's harder to find those. How are you supposed to stylize a machine? That's all I'm trying to get. Do you mix and match like that?
I don't use the machine. I really don't. If someone asked me to make a record that required EDM and that type of stuff, I will get a programmer, and either the programmer will create something based on what I give him that I want, or else I'll beat him over the head till I get it, And I'm not really crazy about doing that stuff. I like to get everybody live, and I think you can make, unless you're making that type of music that's only done EDM, and there's people out there that only want to listen to EDM music, they hear real people play and they don't understand it. As odd as that sounds, Jake.
What is that? Okay, what does it mean? They don't. They either don't. Is it they don't? They understand it. They don't respect the individualism of it. I don't quite understand.
There was somebody. They were interviewing these young people the other day about something. It was a Facebook thing, and I think they were playing Led Zeppelin to these really young kids on a Facebook post, and these young kids were listening to Stairway to Heaven and rock and roll and all these great tracks and everything. And the little girl goes, "Why is he screaming?" And then the little boy, next little boy, says, "I kind of like this. I'd buy this." And he was cool. And then there's one guy, "I don't like anything unless it's electronic."
Wow.
Like,
they've been you talked about it last time. It's the programming.
They've been programmed, and as long as you stuff it down their throats, they're going to figure out a way to digest it. And it's next thing you know, it's going to be a part of their body. Of who they are.
Wow.
You're going to eat it, it's going to be yours. So I think you just it just goes back to talking about getting choices and stylized and everything. I try to handpick all the time the players, and my guys, when I say you're not playing on this, so and so over here is going to play on this, they might go, well, I can do that. Well, it's not a matter of that. It's what my vision is that I want to make sure I get. Yeah, that person probably can play that, and you don't want to pigeonhole anybody, especially that are on the level of musicians that I'm talking about right now.
Right.
You don't want to pigeonhole any of these guys. They can do anything, but some guys just have a certain feel for certain things better than others. So when you're looking for a certain color and flavor and everything, you go to that guy, and that's the blessing of being able to do this way, the way I'm doing it, and have all these incredible players at my disposal. I think I could go. I know I could go outside of this camp here, and I could produce outside this camp. I've done it a few times, and I pulled it off. With other completely foreign strangers, musicians I've never met before, in a studio I didn't know, with an engineer I didn't know, and I pulled it off by pulling the right strings and getting people to do the right things and empowering musicians to play things a certain way. I've done it, but when I come home and I get to use all my guys in my neighborhood and who I want to play on stuff like that, it gets so much better. You get those moments where you smell it, like Ry Cooder said.
Ry Cooder, man.
You get those moments where you see the color. You get those moments where you feel that emotion from that take or from that vocal or whatever, that like it gets you,
Yeah.
And it's just down as primal as when someone plays a drum beat and people start to move. You go boom, bap. I probably said this before. You play a drum beat and people start to move. That's part of it right there. That's the beginning of it right there.
You're affecting
and if you've got guys that can touch, that can do this, that can contact that thing, that special energy, that can contact it and bring it into the music and play together with each other. That's magic, man. You can't touch that. You can't program that. Nobody can program that. You can't touch it.
I mean, this came across when one of the greatest albums that I love, and you're not playing on it, but I wanted to ask you about the first time that you came across the mercurial Delbert McClinton and Glenn Clark. Their album from '73, Delbert and Glenn, has that open the door funky, open the window funk. It's this country, it's this Gulf Coast country sound, and it's Fort Worth, and I'm like, I bet Braunagal and Delbert, because I mean, dude, he was in the Rondells for a while. I mean, that was I mean, I want to know when you cross paths with the old wily veteran Delbert McClinton.
I know Delbert. He's a friend.
Good.
And I love Delbert. He's such a special
love that
talent.
guy.
He really is.
Love
He's a song guy. He'll write, and his songs are all completely conversational. It's just coming straight out of. You're just talking to somebody at a bar, or
right.
Or you're telling somebody, hey, you love them, or whatever. You're telling somebody they're wrong, or whatever. It's a total conversational music with Delbert, and I love him. He's an excellent communicator in that respect. He plays great harmonica. He's got a great tone. He understands feel, and if he doesn't have feel and funkiness to it, it ain't going to work for him. And him and Glenn wrote great songs together. They still do. They did a record a few years ago that they put out another one a few years ago, the two of them. Great record, great writers. I know those guys. That's Fort Worth, man.
Did you know them? Did you know them when you were cooking the groove there in Texas?
I knew some of the Fort Worth boys when I was coming up.
Did you know like David Jackson and those cats? David Jackson's a sick bass player. I mean, those guys, I just love that read. So I'm just curious about, like, that's when you first connected with them. Was that sound... Was the Fort Worth sound different from the sound from where Braunagal was from where you were at in Texas?
Not that far off from Houston. Not that far off. No, it's just up the highway, I-45.
Right.
It's like there's a certain thing to Texas players. There's a certain grease that they have.
Grease, man.
Yeah.
You were like, and you have the grease, man. But it's like. You can't, but that's not something you can program either. You can't program grease.
Oh, hell no. No. You don't put on that shirt and all of a sudden sound like that, You just don't. It doesn't happen. No, grease comes from all the things we're talking about the culture you come from,
Right.
You grew up in Texas, you're going to hear, excuse me, I'm chewing something.
That's fine.
You're going to hear some blues and you're going to hear some country. And they're going to be, on the same gig, you're going to be playing a low-down Jimmy Reed song, and the next thing you know, you're going to be playing a Hank Williams song. When you grow up in Texas and you're playing, and you grow up in the clubs like I did, like Delbert did, like Glenn Clark did, like all the guys from down there we're talking about, you got on a gig, you played a country song as well as you played a blues song. And then you played a funky song, an R&B song. You would play, the latest R&B hit, and then you play, like I said, Jimmy Reed, and straight up country, man, George Jones. You had to mix them all up, and then as things got a little bit more sophisticated, especially, I would say, early '70s, late '60s, you started to feel the jazz thing come alive more. That's when that part of modern jazz, when Coltrane and Miles Davis and everybody, they were out before then. They were doing it before then, but it took a while for it to infiltrate and spread around, infiltrate the scene and spread around the country the way it did.
How can you talk about how it melded in? It was latent, obviously, because they were doing it in the '60s, but you're saying, how did it fuse with the Texas grease music? Well,
there's a lot of great jazzers came from Houston, from Houston and Dallas.
Like Crusaders, huge.
Crusaders, Ornette Coleman, and people like that. I think he was from Fort Worth or Dallas.
Well, I didn't know that.
There was a big modern jazz thing coming from down there, without a doubt, way back then. But it wasn't New York, and New Yorkers New Yorkers think they own jazz pretty much.
Right.
Even when you get East Coast, West Coast guys together, the New Yorkers kind of.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, dude, Julian Priester. I mean, Julian Priester was furious with West Coast. He hated. He just wanted to be a bopper, you know. So it's a little bit of there's a little bit of an elitism there. But yeah, I mean, Go ahead. I mean, this is fascinating. How it came into the lexicon of the music that you were playing.
The only way it did is that I'm sitting here, in love with Motown and Stax, Volt, and Philly, Curtis Mayfield era of Philly,
Vince Montana, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and all of that stuff. I'm in love with all of that, and I'm also listening to country music because you couldn't go anywhere in Texas without hearing it or seeing a pickup truck or a cowboy hat, And my father played country music all the time in the house, so it was there. It became part of my heart and soul. And then when jazz crept in, I didn't try to become a jazz player, but I'm going, whoa, listen to this. Listen to these cats. This is on fire. It's like you hear these guys play, and I'm going, then you start to kind of dig into it. Of course you're going to go, when you're not on stage and you're playing with your buddies or whatever, you're getting together, you're going to try to play a couple things. Okay, let's get the changes to this jazz song, and let's go play Blue Train, and everybody goes, what's that? It's like you want to play this one jazz song, and when I was in I think I mentioned playing at the Gnome Shadows, I was in a 10-piece soul band. The band leader would do that. He would come up with a kind of a jazz song. It would be kind of classic, yet you had to kind of play a little bit of jazz to do it. Now, I just stumbled around. I couldn't play jazz at all. I'm still not a jazz player, but I love it, and I aspire to those guys that do it, when I hear them play, and I watch them play, and I sit down on my own, where nobody can hear me, and I don't suck, but I don't.
No, I mean, it's cool. I mean, I was just the idea that David Lindley's band Kaleidoscope was playing Straight No Chaser. I mean, that was like they were incorporating monk tunes, and then they'd be playing some Balkan tune, and you talk about the culture, and this weaves back to the Catholic. Was it Catholic upbringing that you had? Was that
Catholic upbringing? Yeah.
One thing
I remember like when I first heard jazz, there was a doorman, African American doorman at one of the clubs, and then we were setting up that afternoon to rehearse or something like that at the club, and the cat was like, he was a doorman, but he was also probably cleaning the place up or whatever, or cleaning the beer bottles from the night before or whatever, he was in the club, and he had his own record player, and all of a sudden he's playing John Coltrane and Miles Davis over there. I'm going,
wow.
What is that? Wow! It was so foreign. I'm going, wow! As a kid, and then we started listening, and next thing I know, I realized at that moment that I'm talking about here that was something I needed to pay attention to.
Was it?
This was not going to go away. This was not some monster that was going to get eaten up by a bigger monster and just go away. This was going to be right there for a long time. So that's when I kind of started listening to it, and I listen to it for pleasure and inspiration all the time, and I don't get to go out and do any jazz gigs because I'm not a jazz type drummer, really. I'm not really schooled in it. I can play a little swing on my sessions and stuff like that, and I can certainly do brushwork because I've done it on several records that people have heard that have been, my brushwork on Bonnie Raitt's song, I Can't Make You Love Me, so I've done it, but that's not jazz, it's just that I'm using what jazz chops I eked out over the years, what meager little jazz.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you talk to guys that are quote unquote, stone, not even straight ahead jazzers, just really accomplished musicians, and they'll say that jazz is the most stifling word. They hate being called jazz musicians. Because, right. I mean, in some ways they consider jazz to be a blending of all musics. Was it a question for you, I'm sure it was all of the above, but when the guy threw on the record of Train and Miles, was it the feel, the space in the music, or rhythmically was it so? I guess it might have been Philly Joe playing drums on that. I don't know, but
Awesome.
it.
Hi there. Excuse me, hold on. Hi, I'm just waving. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
no problem. This is
Whenever.
live radio.
What
Nobody can say.
was it? It was the sound of it. You know, I mean, go from a blues record to what you're saying. You know, like
Right.
when we get off the air, just play a little Jimmy Reed or something like that, and then go straight to Miles and listen to the tonality of everything.
Right.
How it jumps out at you. It was like, wow. It's like how a piece of modern art just is. It's jagged. It's too blue there. It's too bright there, but it's gorgeous back up underneath over there. You know what I mean? All the different textures and depths of the painting and everything. And the music was like that. It jumped out at you like I didn't know what to think. You know, it's not like I was really, really into art yet. I understood art. I understood some of the masters. You know, it wasn't like I was without culture. You know, I understood what certain masters of art and what they were about, but not like that. That was modern art, modern music, modern jazz. And they broke a lot of molds, man.
And like you said, it was not going to be something that was going to be eaten by some bigger monster. It was here to stay.
No, it was just going to grow. It was going to become an even huger monster than you would ever imagine. So much to the point that look how culturally important it is. Jazz is to, you know, coming from the African American community, the whole poetry in life of that. Jazz coming from what started out as blues. It started out as blues.
Absolutely.
And then it evolved into jazz. And that's how those guys didn't wake up one day and just start playing jazz. They came from somewhere else. Like all the people that you're talking to on this show and you're talking to me about. We all came from different things, and how we arrived where we are is just part of our journey in life, of all the things we got to play and all the experiences we have. You know,
I do want to say, even though George Jones was rocking on the radio, he would normally be followed during Freeform years by Ravi Shankar, Jean-Luc Ponty, and then some more George Jones. But I mean,
very good, very well put.
You know, your ears were that. You know, and I don't want to get morbid here at all. It's just this goes back to the religious component of country and Western music today. One of the things that I found fascinating, just a terrible tragedy would happen in Las Vegas. Obviously, I mean,
wow.
You know, it's just terrible and diabolical, and probably there will never really be any answer as to why. But
no.
One of the things that didn't get a lot of press, and because, you know, the cat that did this thing, he could have gone to a Grateful Dead and Company show. He could have gone to a Santana concert. He could have gone to Journey, Tower of Power, Steve Miller. He could have done any type of genre of music.
Well, there's certainly nothing that indicates that he was aiming at a country audience.
I agree. Okay, but so putting that aside, what I want to ask you about is this trend towards, you talk about Delbert McClinton. That guy was talking about, like, you know, diner stool romance. I mean, it was conversational country music. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And what I hear,
he certainly came from country music, without a doubt.
I don't care if it was the Amazing Rhythm Aces or, you know, it could have been anybody, and that's not even a good example. But what I'm saying is, why has country music now? The reason I bring it up is because when I hear modern country, it seems to have taken on worship music, and it's that to me. I don't know where that connection came into, and I wanted to.
There's a lot of worship music in Nashville and in the country genre. Yeah, I don't think all of it. I think country music turned into pop, basically.
That's right.
So, you know, it covered. It has its own. It is its own pop. We still have the other kind of pop, but it has its own pop now. It's gone so far away from actually being country. They still put a fiddle on it or a steel guitar or whatever. They still play an acoustic guitar, but the country of it, the root of the country, there's very little of it there in what you hear on the radio and pop Nashville country music. There's still country artists out there. There's tons of them. I was at the Bluegrass, Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival
You
last
were.
weekend.
You were.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, all 4 days, man.
What was?
so
Is it,
all
was
3
that?
days.
Was that in Northern Cali? Where was that?
It was in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, one of the most beautiful
Dude,
places
you are.
I've ever
I
been
mean,
to.
those. I want to see pictures of you boogieing down in there. I mean, that's the pictures I want to see, dude.
I don't know if there are any pictures of me boogieing down, but I was definitely there. It's,
Oh, that's
it's a
great.
pretty amazing place.
That's
man.
awesome, man.
It's a whole other conversation, really.
Yeah.
But my point is, what is and was country is still alive in this crowd because they're still into the folkiness of it without it being hokey. They're still into simple instruments. They're still into simple approach toward playing songs and getting the emotion across. They're wonderful, magnificent musicians playing this stuff. It's a whole different thing. I mean, Ornette Coleman's review, which is his son, Denardo Coleman, had his band, and they played, completely Rorschach-looking music. You know what I mean? It was just they were all over the place. It was complete modern jazz, like his father played, like Ornette, Senior played.
That's right.
And yet the contrast to that was these other artists that were up there playing beautiful, sensitive ballads. Now it's fusing into. There were these 2 beautiful young ladies doing something called Rising Appalachia, and they were from Georgia, and there was a little bit of country and a little bit of Appalachia in it, but they had a drummer that was playing a Northern African gourd.
Not a trap set. Not a trap set.
No, it's a trap set. It was the
Wow.
making those
wow,
noises. That
wow,
you hear
that's
on
your
Mali
bag
and
right
Northern
there,
African
man.
stuff.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So if you get out and look for it, it's so much incredible new stuff out there that still holds on to that root of whether it's originally Appalachia, whether it came from Ireland or Scotland or wherever the hell that root of that music came from. The Gaelic side of the music that is part of our culture as well. It's still there, but it's not a lot of it in the country music you hear on the radio.
And that's my question: is that country went to pop? How much of this conversation that we're having would be potentially solvable if they were playing authentic music that you saw at this bluegrass, this festival? If that actually got airplay, I mean, would we be even having this discussion?
It's not. It doesn't fit in the programming now. That's the same as pop music. You can't take real music and real musicians and put them on those pop radio stations. The people are not going to hear the sounds and noises they want to hear.
It's the programming. It's the programming
is
again. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It's all programmed. It's all totally programmed. It doesn't have to be that way, but in no way is there anything left that's wide open. There might be some European radio that's still. I know, not me. There is some European radio that's still wide open, where you can almost play. I would say not anything, but you could definitely play a broader spectrum of what exists in the world musically. But not in the United States unless it's a college station.
Hardly. So you said that they could. It was very. It's still authentic. This Hardly Strictly. They were very folky without being hokey, and I like that.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, there's some hokiness in some of it. Some of the acts I just turned and walked away from. There were 5 major stages the size of enormous coliseums, amphitheater type settings, and 2 or 3 smaller stages. And you could just walk around. If you were ready to walk, you could walk all day long. You could walk a mile to get to the far of the stage, but you're going to come, and on the way back you're going to see another stage or whatever. And I would just walk away from stuff that I didn't relate to, But if there's something I wanted to see and it sounded good, and they had a gospel group on Sunday morning from Oakland. And they were a monster. They killed it, and they, everybody. What a way to start the day,
Well, I mean, that's God, that's that's worship.
Gospel group from Oakland, yeah, it was strong. The Sons of the Soul Revivers, and so it's an amazing festival, man. It's on 16 or 17 years right now, and the man who was a billionaire financier, Hellman. His first name starts with an M. Martin or Melvin Hellman. And he's set up a foundation, I don't know, $100 million or something like that, so that they could put on this festival every year. and it goes every single year, and it's packed and it's jammed. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people go there. It's free in Golden Gate Park. There's nothing else like it, Jake, that I've seen.
Well, no, I mean, I've done interviews with. One of the refreshing things is that I not just talking to the sages like you, but I mean, there are the cycle of music. I mean, I've been able to connect with my peer group, even younger cats who are up in that area playing music that, and their ears are into the Emmylou Harris 70s stuff and the melodies of the Graham Parsons stuff from that time. So they're reaching back for that sort of, multiple part harmony stuff. We opened with this. Now again, we talked last time about Island Studios, quite a bit. But I have never seen this album. But we led in with this track, GT Moore. I really need you to talk because I mean I don't even know how much this album is selling for. I've actually never seen the album. That tune was called "Move It On Up," and you're drumming on that. And
yeah, where did you get that?
Well, I mean, it's on YouTube. I mean, it's not like
is it? Okay.
I mean, everything. But I mean, I typed it in because I'm looking at your discography, and I encourage anybody in my audience to go to the All Music Guide, type in Tony Braunagal, go to the credits. It is the most mercurial list of credits, and you were so honest last time, and I loved it because you said, my Grease style might have prevented me from more opportunities to really have more commercial opportunities, and I forget how you ended it, but you weren't hung up about it, and it turned into stuff where that was Rasta. I mean, that was the heaviest. It's called GT Moore and the Reggae Guitars.
Yeah.
Why don't you fill in the gap on that one? Because this is one of those nuggets.
An all-white guy band playing reggae. It was
all white cats playing reggae. I just that to me is. I mean, give me the videos of that stuff, man.
It's a bunch of kind of college boys who just fell in love with reggae, and artists in college, art students and stuff like that, and the punk became very prominent right after that. But these guys were all into reggae. Well, I'd played with Johnny Nash, so I knew the reggae idiom. So when I met G.T. Moore, Gerald Moore, we became really good friends, and we were hanging out together. Next thing I know, I go to see them play. Next thing you know, he needs me to play drums with him. Boom. I don't think I even rehearsed. He just called out all these iconic reggae songs that I knew, and some of them were original, and I became part of his band with me and Ted Hawley. Ted Hawley was living over in London as well, and we would go back and forth being the drummer, or we would play two drummers.
You would play double drums?
Yeah, we played double drums and reggae.
Oh.
And, man, what a train that was.
How did that work? I mean, how did you...
Hey, we just stay out of each other's way.
Right.
Really, you're all trying to make, once again, we go back to that thing, we're all trying to make the song and the singer sound great, and everybody played tasty like that. So Ted Hawley was a very tasty drummer, went on to do well in New York, and still he was in Wings for a while, and so he's done well, and so he's a great drummer anyhow, so he knew what to do, and we played together, and it was complimentary. But that band, they were reggae fanatics. They loved reggae, and we would all get together and go play colleges all over England and all over Holland and some in Germany. We would just get in a van and drive around with a very simple setup, drums and small bass amps and small guitar amps, and hit these stages and just tear it up. And we did it all. And when we made that record, I pretty much co-produced it with Gerald. And I don't think I had my exact correct papers at that time for it to be on. I believe it was Chrysalis, I believe.
I mean, do you have a copy of that? I mean, I am going to be...
No, I don't know if I do. But I might have it somewhere. I have to go look. I lost a large part of my collection in the years where I moved too much.
Well, I mean, you're singing a familiar tune. Everybody seems to... I mean, it's one of those albums. Actually, I thought that might have been one of the sessions where you and your bass partner, I can't remember his name now, were
Barry
Wilson and you were cooking with the real Rastas, but this was just a bunch of white cats playing Rasta.
No, the bass player's an Irish guy who now lives in Florida. Gerald lives in.
I love it.
I think he lives in Belgium, or France. I don't know where any of the other guys are, if they're still alive, I guess. So as far as I know, I haven't heard that anybody's passed, because we're all of the same age now. But I don't know. It would be interesting to try to find a GT Moore and the Reggae Guitars reunion come together. That would be really hilarious.
Well, one thing I wanted to say to you, we've been cooking here for 72 more minutes with Braunagal Enlightenment, but there's a museum here. It's called the Musical Instrument Museum. It's in Scottsdale. And it was you spiked my memory because you brought up this philanthropist who basically funded the entire Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival, and the CEO from Target. This thing's been open now 5 or 6 years, and he basically funded the whole thing. And it is the most incredible. It would take you a full day to get through this entire museum because it's multiple levels, and they've dedicated a listening station and ethnic instruments from every country in every continent in the world. There's a jam room, there's a 5-star restaurant, and there's also this incredible performing arts theater in it. Okay, so I've been there multiple times, and there's no what I'm trying to get at is there's no reason why the Phantom Blues Band shouldn't be coming to play there because the acoustics are incredible, and they're bringing in everybody from Tower of Power to John Sebastian to Pat Martino. I mean, Booker T was there, but I mean nobody knows about this place, and I'm like, we got to get you guys. How do we get you? I mean, let me know who your manager is.
What's the name of this place again?
It's called the Musical Instrument Museum, and it's going to blow your freaking mind when you see this place.
It's in Scottsdale.
It's right outside Phoenix, and they are awash in money because I told you the guy from Target created this thing. That's sort of my next project with you is to figure out how to get you guys down here. There's no reason why you shouldn't be coming down.
Would love to. I'd love to get the guys together to do something like that.
So we'll just shoot some messages. But yeah, I mean, I'm very close.
And then also I could book a date in Tucson as well.
Well, no, we're gonna. I mean, yeah, I just want to start. Listen, the goal now is to continue to grow my presence as a not just a journalist, but as somebody who's a Hunter S. Thompson kind of on the spot live journalist, becoming really connected to you guys, meeting you guys, and growing my own brand. So I want to be able to bring you guys to places where it's going to be fruitful, and nobody really. And this place is completely established, and it's a kind of place that would welcome you with open arms. So. So we have some projects to do, Braunagal.
I'd love to do that. You hit me up, and I'll start to put the pieces together from this end.
Much love, dude, and just another tremendous hang. And I'm going to have to talk to you again at some point about punk music. I still don't understand where that came in and how the origins of punk. I know where it went to in the '80s, but it seemed to follow the reggae. And then you mentioned.
Yeah, only thing I can talk about is what I saw in the beginning. You know.
And that's all. And we're going to save that for part 3. I want to get it because I want the beginnings of punk because I still don't understand it. But when I first heard the Sons of Champlin, I didn't understand it. Now I can't stop listening to it. So there you go.
Amazing.
So anyway, man, go on.
It's great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, man. And we'll be in touch. Take care, man.
We'll do some more, man. You take care of yourself. All right.
All right, Tony. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Later, man. Peace. Set 2 in the books with Tony Braunagal. Before him, it was Debashish Bhattacharya. Another cosmic day on the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, peace.